episode 41 of Full Circle. I am your host, Chad. Cheddar Caveman on all of the things, including the channel that you just connected to. So, tonight I think I will take, for our episode, news and sort of what we talk about will be kind of combined, because I'm going to take my friend Robin from Sweden's advice and talk about some WTC lists. So the lists were posted. They're using Conflict Chamber. It should be pretty easy to find a link out there if you would like. Other quick news. CID is continuing for the things that we talked about last week. We got Bradigus. We've got a few of the Wolds, the Wold White, the Stone Shaper, and then some things for some other factions. And largely no changes so far, which I think is good. I've played some games with Bradigus specifically, and with everything but the Wold Watcher, who I may try to get some games in later with, or I may not. I'm undecided on that. I may focus on a few other things. And sorry, I'm seeing a note that maybe my thing is not working very well. Oh, seems like we're okay. Sorry if you're seeing any video latency. I'm still working off of some Wi-Fi, a few other issues as I get my house together, and so if you're experiencing any video issues, my apologies. However, I will soldier on, and hopefully we will keep things will keep working out all right. My stream's saying it's okay instead of good. So, anyways, on the Wolds, the Wold Watcher I haven't played. I've theorized a little bit. He has a lot of utility, and I think he's a piece that I'm going to need to see on the table and play games with before I decide if I like it. You can get 2 of those for a single Wold Guardian, for example, but I'm not at a stage yet where I know if that's something I want or don't want. The Wold Wardens were fantastic. Wold Guardians hit very, very hard like I wanted them to, and it really used their animus. A lot of people are really negative on it. I think it'd be cool if it were not range self, actually, so that it could be used a little bit more, but I think that's actually a lot of, I talked about this with a friend and teammate, and he pointed out that that could be potentially pretty pretty severe. So yeah, at the moment, it's probably not going to be a change. I think he's in an alright place for 8 points at Mat 6. He's got 2 POW 12s. He's got a POW 12 gun. He's got RFP. He has AD. He's really hard to kill. I think it's fine. The other Wolds are great. The Wold White was nice. Bradigus has gotten a couple changes as the CID has gone along. Nothing huge. Mostly changes to Mystic Wards. His gun going to range 10 though was quite nice. Yeah, so it's kind of all in that. So let's get to the great, back to good. Let's get to the meat of things. Oh, interesting. Conflict Chamber is killing my. Right when I switched over to looking at Conflict Chamber, is it specific to that? Nope. Alright, sorry guys. What else is using? Apparently something else is using a lot of my CPU, and it's causing my encoding to not go so swell. So I'm going to take a quick peek to see what that might be. It looks like it might be Chrome. Anyways, hopefully we can maintain the stream sufficiently here. I'll do my best. I do need to have Chrome open to sort of look at what I want to talk about, which was the WTC. So I want to start with some of the statistics that we have it looks like it might be that which is causing me to have some, yeah, it's kind of killing my stream. Did not expect this, fellow druids. So, bear with me a moment. We'll see if we can get back into the green here. Like I said, I had not really anticipated Conflict Chamber being the problematic piece here. So we're gonna see if we get back to good on my stream. But what I want to talk about is WTC and Circle's place in it. I may do some of this from memory if loading that seems to continue to affect my stream. Seem to be connected to the correct node in my house. So we had basically and now I'm just doing this a little bit off of memory, but I think what I'm gonna do is close that. Let's see if that helps at all. And so first we're calling from memory Circle. So the factions in the order that they are represented in numbers went Signar Crix at the top. I think it was Crix first by a single player. Then Khador, Retribution, and then we see Legion and Circle. I think might have been Circle first actually. Let's see if we're able to load this a little better. Yeah, Circle, and then Legion, and then Protectorate, Mercenaries, Scorn, Convergence, Grimkin, Trollbloods, and Minions. So a little, you know, Circle was one of the highest represented factions last year. I think it was like Khador and Circle last year. So that has obviously changed significantly. The number of Hordes factions in general is still low, and lower than last year. I think overall because Circle came down, although Scorn has come up, but Trolls again went down. So, you know, there's a big mixed bag there, obviously. And you know, I think that's not terribly surprising from my discussions with some folks over, or you know, sort of internet discussing with folks over in Europe. Nothing too terribly surprising there. They are pretty down on Hordes in general, and they've been pretty down on Hordes in general, and they and Circle and Legion have, even though they're sort of the favored ones, have been lower. Trollbloods especially so, and I think Trollbloods are sort of poised to bounce back a little bit once their CID changes kind of hit, but that's not going to be in time for this event. So I think no surprise on that we're not seeing them represented very well. Minions, ever since the Throwapalooza got nerfed, I think Minions have been on a decline. Also, I think a couple prominent players that go to the WTC who play Minions sort of have stepped back a little bit, so that's not too surprising. But Circle, you know, is a little lower than we've been historically, but still the first from Hordes factions, and I think part of that is we answer some specific problems that are likely to be presented in a team format, and I think it's also just because Circle's a popular Hordes faction, and you know, people play regardless of like the competitive sort of like defined level of something, people still play the factions they own. So but let's take a look at a few of the numbers on things. So caster wise, it may or may not surprise people, but we're looking at Wormwood coming in at 16. So this is the total number of lists, not players. So each player has 2 lists, obviously. There are 16 Wormwoods. 13 Una 2s, and then there's a pretty sharp drop off. 7 Balder 2s, 5 Kruger 2s, 4 Balder 1s, 3 Grails, 2 Morvana 2s, 2 Mosars, 2 Taniths, 2 Kaya 2s, and 2 Kruger 1s. And theme force wise, the distribution is 26 of those are not in theme, 15 in Devourer's Host, 9 in Bones, and 8 in Wild Hunt. So obviously what that tells me is that there's a constant, most people still, the majority of the lists, people still are not playing in theme, and what that tells me is folks, so none of our, with the exception of Bones of Orboros, none of our themes are really like Warbeast centric, and I would say a large majority, if not the majority of Circle players really feel that our Warbeasts are the most important part of the list, and that the infantry and the rest of the list kind of comes secondary. And there's some truth to that, and I think there's a few other things at play there too. I think a lot of people in Circle are really stuck right now on a few models being the crux of our faction. In particular, Sentry Stones, Sentry Stone and Mannequins, Woldweirds, Purebloods, and a few other things. But like those 3 pieces really are what I hear a lot about with our faction, right? And then after that, you hear other Warbeasts, right? Loki, Getorix, Ferals. People seem pretty down on the Warpole Stalker right now. Overall, they're very up on the Woldweird. I think people are going to be up on Wolds in general, but the changes that they need are also not going to be live for this event. They may not even be live until after War Machine Weekend, based on sort of the previous timings, or they may be live like that weekend, and which is fine. But it affects what's going on at WTC. So this is definitely something, as time goes on, like this game is sort of turned into a bit of a living game, if you will. And what that means is sometimes if you're gonna play competitively, you got to play what the rules are, right? And that doesn't mean don't do some sample games and don't test some stuff and don't check out CID. I absolutely think you should do that, because you should be prepared for that to be eventually the game, but remember that the game is what it is now, right? If you play any other competitive like video games, like I play Heroes of the Storm, for example, and they have a PTR server, but that's not live, right? Like those things are being tested, and they're a little bit closer to release usually when that hits than like the CID is for us, but it's not live till it's live, and this is still a miniatures game. It still has physical pieces and components to it, so the turnaround, while it's a living game, isn't going to be it's never going to be immediate. They also have less resources than a company like Blizzard, so that's kind of the case. Also, feel free, if there's anybody in the chat, feel free to, if you have any questions about WTC or anything that's going on in general, please post. But anyway, as far as WTC, some of the things for Circle, so I think we will see more play in Bones, because I think it sort of does what I'm talking about, right? Like Circle's Warbeasts are really the backbone, are considered largely to be the backbone of the faction for a lot of people, and they that theme force, once the Stone Shaper change is in, is going to be very, very playable in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think if you can play it in pure like looking purely to like put damage out there with something like a Bradigus, but you also have the potential of playing like a Kruger 2 that now can play sort of a spell version of a gun line that can close once it gets there. You can play a Balder 2 list that now has the ability to put out more damage. You can play interesting Balder 1 lists in that theme probably as well. Wormwood may even play in Bones, especially if it's getting the if it gets the minion minion unit model and minion unit solo change that a lot of themes are poised to get, then it especially becomes compelling for Wormwood, because you can bring along something like Bone Grinders then for souls. and things like that. Even just bringing swamp gobblers in that theme could be beneficial. Gives you 2 more souls, gives you a cloud to hide the tree in when you need to. So just a few small things there that, you know, so that theme I predict, wow, tongue-tied there. That theme I think we'll see more. So I think, you know, we're starting to look at these numbers next year. While we'll have a few more themes by then, I think you'll start to see when, I think that the fact that we're playing not theme by this time next year will, in fact, even by ATC in January, will not be the same. But I see why it is now. So a lot of people have at least one list. Like I went to WITC and I had one list that was out of theme because I wanted to play mostly War Beasts, at which point I wasn't going to get very much out of the free points. Snacking is an okay benefit. Tracker is sort of a difficult benefit for our heavies because they don't have Pathfinder largely. So, yeah, it's just, it didn't really make a lot of sense for a lot of lists to be that way. And a lot of people have just been playing that way, right? Like themes are kind of starting to pick up, but I'm going to pick on a US player, Dan Yount, right? The lists he's been playing, these are lists he's been playing since they qualified at the ATC, basically. There's a little bit of changes to them, and the Fulcrum's gotten buffed since then, but largely he's just been playing these lists all year, and he's been doing very well with them, and why change at this point? So I think you'll see a little bit of that at play too. But Devourer's Host in the #1 spot is not terribly surprising. I feel like it's a very well-rounded theme. I think it provides... the thing the Tharn models provide is they can hit somewhat hard. Not like, you know, I wouldn't call them absolutely hard-hitting infantry, but they do hit somewhat hard. And they're fast. Which is sort of the downfall of... So Wolves of Orboros are decently fast, but like Skinwalkers don't threat terribly far on their own, I think. And the Death Wolves getting corpses is pretty phenomenal. So it's no surprise. I mean, I've championed a lot of Devourer's Host. I've played a lot of Devourer's Host. No surprise that that comes in at the spot it does. I think Bones of Orboros being in the second spot is just a lot of folks liking Baldur 2 is a big component of that. There are a few that were not Baldur 2s, but I think that's a pretty big component of it. And then the Wild Hunt lists, they're kind of all over. I have not played enough Wild Hunt to really comment on it. The one that it's the least restrictive War Beast wise of our themes, because you get both living and construct in that one. But not a lot of folks have really seemed all that keen on playing Skinwalkers or Wolves of Orboros a ton. I know some of those are like in a Wormwood list, where they're bringing like 2 units of Wolves of Orboros and the rest is the same. But there are some more like focused versions as well. So that's sort of some analysis on the theme, or themes rather. And then sort of, I'm not going to go through. If you want to, you can pull up this list and it will show you model entries by numbers. And just to break it down, the top few are basically the Scarsfell Griffin, Wold Weirds, Sentry Stone and Mannequins, Shifting Stones, Gallows Grove, Pureblood Warpwolf, Blackcloud Wayfarer, Gorax, and then Ravagers, the Stone Shaper, Feral, and a few other things. And I'm going to close this page now because it's killing my stream. So what that tells me is sort of what I was saying already, right? So Sentry Stones are still perceived by Circle players as very important component to list building. Scarsfell's Griffins being high is no real coincidence. There were 13 Una 2 players, and I don't personally feel that you can build an Una 2 list with less than 4. You might be able to, but like less than 4 Griffins and still really feel like you're getting the most out of her kit. Even if you opted to go in the direction of the other Griffins, like I just don't think. I think you need at least 4 to make a difference. And honestly, 5 to me kind of feels like 5 Griffins and a Gorax is sort of my default, and then sometimes I'll add one more or whatever. but that's kind of where I build that. So it's no surprise if there's 13 players playing Una that there's going to be a pretty healthy number of Scarsfield's Griffins. That's also going to account for a Gorax per list. And then a few other things. So some people had Purebloods in their list, as I recall. There's some played Devour Soul, some were played mostly it's just light spam. Some have Wold Weirds in them. I don't think I saw one with a Fulcrum, surprisingly, but that's also quite good with her. So yeah, I mean, an Una weighing in at number 2 clearly shows at least a lot of the Circle community. And this is in Europe because I might be in Canada too. Dan's the only U.S. player repping Circle. I'm not quite recalling off the top of my head, and what I'm going to do is try to pull. I'm going to try to pull up the page on my phone so we can continue to look at details. But yeah, a lot of Una 2 lists, a lot of Wormwood, as I said. Baldur 2 weighed in at the next place, and that's no surprise. I think a lot of folks really are very keen on him. I think he plays, I personally think I get a little, I think he has a lot of strengths, but I find him a little too one-dimensional and uninteresting, so I don't tend to play a ton of Baldur 2. I think he's very good, and I think he definitely has a place. I think SR 2017 is going to make things a little rougher for him, but the Change of the Bones are going to be stronger for him too, so that's sort of where he's at. I am able to pull this up on my phone, so that's the UI is a little bit clunkier on here, but hopefully we can continue to discuss. All right. Kruger 2 being up that far, not terribly surprising, but only 5 players. I mean, really after Una 2, it's sort of a lot of variation in the Circle lists, and I think the things not represented are both Chromax, Kaya 1 and Kaya 3, Morvana 1, and Bradigus. I think those are the casters not represented. And that may be a mistake. I think Kaya 3 has a pretty interesting set of tools and set of options and ways she's built. I do think she's another caster that's a great example of probably we'll see more of her if we get a living War Beast theme. Bradigus, I think we'll see more when the Wolds get buffed, potentially. Chromac 1 and 2 not being played is sort of this weird theory that everybody has that the game is so focused around shooting and that he can't survive it. There's some truth to that. Obviously, he's on a bigger base. He doesn't bring any real defensive tech in both versions. He has the ability to be, you know, there is the ability to be +2 armor. So I can kind of understand why there's been a lack of the Chromax, but on the other hand, I'm a little disappointed too. Chromac 2 definitely still has a straightforward but compelling kit. Carnage is a very good spell. His feat is very strong. He himself, I really think Chromac 2 and Grail are probably the 2 Warlocks that have the ability to do the most personal work. I mean, there's some others, but like I'm talking like melee, like actually go in on a hard model and make a difference. And Chromac 2 more so than Grail. I mean, Grail gets to a POW 12 Weapon Master, while Chromac is POW 17 every turn. So they have some different utilities and stuff, but you know, I think one of the things that is unfortunate not seeing Chromac 2 is that he's just one of the few casters that we can put in there. And while sometimes you're like, well, you know, I've been trading these kind of expensive heavies throughout the game, at the end of the game, someone like a Chromac 2 is like, well, I'm still here, and you know, I'll do damage into your jacks that are still on there or whatever. So, or I can still finish the caster at the end of the game because I'm at 8 POW 17. So that's important. And I think there's some game out there for Chromac 2. Chromac 1, Chromac 1 is a caster that I feel like I want to really give some thought to at some point. I have not yet done so. He's another caster that may really benefit from the Living Beast theme being something that we get. So I can see again why people have not looked at him. I think there are a few things that Kruger 2 can do that are somewhat similar between TK and Warpath, where I see why people go with Kruger 2 instead of Chromac. Bestial, on the other hand, is just a really terrific spell that I think gets underrated. Warpath is also very strong, obviously, and Wild Aggression really can turn a Stalker into just a murder machine even still. As well as, Warp Murderous Gettyrix with that is just killing whatever you send him at, if it's a defensive issue. So, but I get some people like, well, Chromac 2 doesn't bring a damage buff, or sorry, Chromac 1 doesn't bring a damage buff. He doesn't bring a way to survive shooting, and everybody feels like the game is needing to put damage out and needing to protect yourself from shooting. There's a lot of truth to that, but I think that might be narrowing the game down a bit too much. And I think there's probably game for Chromac 1 out there. He was played in a world where back in Mark II, where Kane 2 was at least what he is today, if not more, or if not, in some ways he was stronger. And I still recall reading Pagani's write-up about how to play into Kane. He never said it was an even, he didn't say what the percentage of the matchup was or anything. But I think with some of the changes to terrain, where we now see a centerpiece a lot of the time, I think, depending on where our themes go, I think, depending on your list build and a few other things, I do think Chromac 1 can have a place. And I think he definitely could shut down a lot of stuff with Bestial and a bit of his kit. So it's too bad we don't see him, but that's the breaks. Morvana 1, folks just don't seem to be too up on. I'm sort of in that boat. I know there was an insider where Pagani posted the list he really liked in the new theme, but that's not out yet. And I just think that a lot of people look for a list that's more flexible than hers is when considering things. And she's not protecting you against the ranged threat either, at least not enough. She's protected, but not necessarily the rest of her army. So, Kai 1's no surprise, nobody's liked. Kai 1, Bradigus is still perceived toward the bottom. I think the world changes may make a big difference for him, but we'll see. Yeah, so that kind of explains the Warlocks we didn't see. I'm going to see if I can pick out a few lists. We'll maybe try to sort of cherry pick our way through some of the teams. So I'm by no means is what I'm picking based on any sort of system. I'm going to skip over US. Like I talked about Dan's list a little bit already, and nothing really new there. We're going to see what Brett Wilkie is bringing. Brett plays for England Roses. He's a many-time player at the WTC, so figure his list will be interesting. He also took the Wormwood 1 Una 2 pairing, which honestly may be what I end up taking. Not these lists, but that pairing may be what I take to the next event as well. His Wormwood list is kind of the current classic build with the double Sentry Stones, double Shifting Stones, double Wold Weirds, and then Pure Blood Gettyrix, Gorax, and Megalith to round it out. He's got Swamp Gobbers and a Chef. Those are his only extra souls. And then he's backing that up with an Una 2 list. The most straightforward Devourer's Host version, 5 Griffins, Gorax, Death Wolves, full Blood Trackers, no Nuala, 2 Ravagers with 2 Free Chiefs. And I think that's there's a pretty solid pairing there. I think people will probably be surprised at the amount of damage those Ravagers put out with Hand of Fate. The Death Wolves put out a lot of damage with Hand of Fate. Blood Trackers put out a lot of damage with Hand of Fate. And the Griffins with Flank and whatnot can definitely do a lot of work. So I think it's a strong list. Strong pairing, nothing terribly interesting. We'll probably have to make our way over to something like Poland to see some interesting stuff. And we'll work our. I'm going alphabetically, so we'll see. I'm trying to take a look at one thing while I'm sorting through here that is interesting is Scorn is definitely on a bit of a rise. A lot of that seems like the folks in Germany actually have been the ones I've heard having a lot of success with Scorn. Rasheth in particular seems to be a favorite. It'll be interesting to see where Scorn really lands here in the next few months. Their themes are going to drop along with everybody else's. I think their faction's got a lot of great tools. They get a new caster at the end of the year. Seems like a good time really to be repping Scorn. So if you play them, check it out. Bernard Fischer from Germany, Loreley. He has a pretty similar. He has Una 2 and Tanith 1 actually. Tanith's definitely an interesting call. I think Tanith's another caster I need to revisit. I think I played a lot of her right at the turn of the edition, and I think she kind of has has mostly an offensive tool for everything, but she can make herself stealth. She can, her utility with her gun is very big. Scything Touch is a really good spell in Circle. But she doesn't really do a lot to protect her army, so the army kind of has to protect itself. I think she's got some really interesting builds that can be out there. The fact that you can always take Loki with her is pretty critical. And then, no one plays Reeves better than she does. This list does not. This is Pureblood, Loki, Feral, one Scarsfeld Griffin, I'm guessing. He can use that to trade up a little bit, and you can also use it as an Arc Nude for her feet, so that's really good. Grove, Wilder, he's got Hutchuck in there, he's got Wrong Eye and Snapjaw in there, and then he's got Mannequin, Stones, Gobbers. So Wrong Eye and Snapjaw here, obviously with Scything Touch, they can take advantage if you can position the Scything Touch where you need to. That takes Snapjaw to some pretty sizable damage. They're pretty immune to shooting, and of course, Starcross is a really good spell. And then the Una list is in Devourer's Host, and he brought the difference is he did not bring the Death Wolves and he didn't bring any Ravagers. So he brought 3 units of Blood Weavers, a Shaman and a White Mane for free, and he threw a Pureblood in there as well. So bit of an interesting, different loadout. I think with all those Blood Weavers, I would have still just used my free points for Night Witches, but he probably has this theory as to why he did not do that. So it's some more interesting lists, more on it too, as you can see. Let's see if we got a interesting. I think one of the Polish teams. I think hopefully it's the one I tapped on. It is. One of the Polish teams actually has 2 Circle players. I think this is the only team. I'm going to butcher these names, so I don't even want to try, but. Arthur Reitz, I apologize if you watch or somebody tells you I just butchered that name. He brought Wormwood and Morvana 2. Wormwood list is pretty standard stuff, although his is in the Wild Hunt, so no Sentry Stones, but he does have a min unit of Wolves with the UA and a max unit of Wolves with the UA. So my guess is the min unit comes up the middle, he uses those for souls, the max unit ambushes. He's got a Stonekeeper on one of his Shifting Stones, no big deal. Stalker, Pureblood, Feral, and 2 Old Weirds is the loadout. Good battle group. Yep. So that's an interesting list. And then he's got Morvana 2 in the Devourer's Host, and that's rocking 3 units of Blood Weavers, 2 units of Ravagers with UAs, Death Wolves, 2 Shaman, and Night Witch, along with a Stalker Gorax package. So it's playing down a point, just because there's the beast don't make sense. But I think that's actually a very compelling loadout. I've tried something similar. Should be strong into Crix with all the magic weapons on the Blood Weavers, and the fact that you can get them up to mat 10. It can be pretty strong when you need to. Ravagers being able to go up to mat 9 / 10 for the Chiefs is pretty important into something like Legion. The Shaman keeping them from being knocked down makes them pretty survivable, along with her feet, bringing them back, and Fog of War to keep, to give them some defensive tech. So, very cool list. I played a little bit of Our Source from Lorna too. I do like it. I don't like the anti-synergy with a lot of her stuff is triggers on destroyed, and then you don't get corpses. So, or she has stuff that RFPs that prevents corpses. And then Powell Blados also is playing Circle, same team, and he has a Grail 1 Una 2 pairing. The Una 2 list looks, again, pretty similar to the things we've seen. Double Ravagers, double Shaman, Death Wolves, a Night Witch, and a Gal's Grove, 5 birds, and a Thorax. And then he backs it up with a Grail list that's also in Devourer's House, so that's unique. 2 Purebloods in that battle group. Full Ravagers again, full Blood Trackers, Blood Weavers, Death Wolves, a free Shaman, and a Night Witch. We haven't talked much about Grail. I did go through his card a while back. I actually think Grail is very compelling. He has the ability to give stealth to his whole army. He has the ability to put Vengeance on a unit, which is Vengeance on, if you've played Vengeance on Ravagers, and you know how good it can be, especially on multi-wound things. Vengeance, I'm assuming with this list, he's probably putting that Death March either on Blood Trackers or Death Wolves. Depending on where his Storm Rager is going, Storm Rager on either Tala, in my opinion, either Tala or Skull is pretty phenomenal. Skull goes up to POW 16. So if he has 3 corpses, you get a POW 16 charge by POW 6, by boost damage on so 2 boosted POW 16s into a heavy, or he can at mat 9 overtake through a lot of stuff. And the +2 armor ain't bad either. Ravagers already have Vengeance. And the thing is, Grail's feat is actually phenomenal here, right? So you send and Blood Trackers getting Vengeance can be pretty big. Just a 3-inch move. So now they're threatening 17 inches with their throws, or more, depending on if you feed or not. Feed gives stealth. Like, there's a lot of really cool things. So I mean, Grail you think of first as like, well, I want to play Wolfstorm with him because that's really what he clearly wants to play. But a few of his abilities are just really good on an infantry focused list, and I think the Devourer's Host builds a really compelling infantry focused list. I would be curious to see if Lord of the Feast was any good still with Storm Rager, if and some corpses, something to test out. It's too bad he couldn't fit a second Shaman in here. I think it would be pretty good. I think Nuala is generally pretty good as well. So yeah, a lot of being able to put stealth out there could be pretty good as well. Gallows is another threat range extension. I think there's just a lot of really great tools in that list. So very cool list. Interesting to see 2 Devourer's Hosts. I'm actually sort of batting around some similar thoughts myself. So very cool to see that. I don't know if any of the other polls. Oh, another Circle player in a different Polish team. This is a Kruger 1 Balder 2 pairing. Super defensive build. Big difference is Kruger 1 list brings a Wild Argus and a Stalker over just a Getorix, and that basically just costs him the white mane that I would run when I played this build. So probably not the end of the world. Balder 2 is pretty standard stuff. Megalith, Wold Wrath, Wold Weirds, and it's in Bones, usual support. He only has 1 Sentry Stone because he brought the Fulcrum. So that's kind of interesting. I feel like there was one more that kind of jumped out at me, but now I'm blanking on it. So anyways, we'll just talk more generically. So, I think this will be telling, I don't think this will be telling of where Circle is. I don't think it's totally telling of where Circle is about to be. I think themes coming in are going to change the landscape quite a bit. I think the really late learning of the Signar changes made a pretty big difference. If you look through, there's still a lot of Haley 2 players, and there's a lot of debate between people as to where her power level actually has landed. Some people think she's just awful now, or not awful, but just doesn't cover enough of the game, and they don't necessarily feel like the rest of Signar does. Clearly, a lot of people stuck with her, so they think that they still think she's pretty strong. There's a lot more siege than I expected, and I presume that's to deal with. He brings some of the few RFP. Started talking about Crix. Triumph getting buffed helped a lot too. But so these new themes are going to come in. Possibly before this event, possibly just after it, and that's going to change things up a little bit. I think depending on where Signar lands is going to change up a bit. So right now, one of the interesting rock paper scissors sort of problems is you have Khador out there, and Khador, especially Jack spam Khador, and sometimes even IFP spam Khador, it's kind of a problem. It's kind of a tricky thing for Circle to play into. But that type of list is just pretty much smashed by anything Crix brings. You know, Bane Warriors love nothing more than Warjacks that are just running at them. Thank you for just giving me a no game whatsoever. And things like Ghost Fleet have just more recursion than lists like that are going to deal with. You're just going to either chew through them or they're going to make a mistake and go get their caster. So Crix kind of preys on stuff like that a lot. Khador can build lists that play into Crix, don't mind you, but you know, then Crix can prepare for that and stuff. So, but then Circle kind of smashes Crix if you can play a pretty good game. We have a lot of RFP, we have a lot of infantry removal, and we have the kind of infantry removal that Crix doesn't really want to deal with, right? Like Stalkers just warp berserk, and Mat 6 is usually plenty into things like that. Hellmouth is great, Crevasse is great, Kruger 1's feet, potentially, depending on what you're playing against, but Kruger 1's feet, Kruger 2's Lightning Storm spells, and his feet keep stuff off of you, but Rebuke is really good in that matchup as well. I think Una can play it. I think Devour Sos is good into it. I think even some Bones lists, because you can bring so many sprays, etc. Like we just do very well into. I think we have the ability to do very well into Crix. So yeah, I mean, it's just very, you know, it's a very interesting situation altogether. But you know, then you know, so we're like this Khador Crix circle is very, very interesting to me, like how that plays out. You know, and then obviously there's a bunch of other factions. So I think with Signar decreasing, I only see Crix increasing unless Denegar 1 is addressed, and then they may start to settle out a little bit. But I think Crix is back, in case anybody's missed the memo. It's too bad, really. I do think the Khador Jack lists are going to start to hurt in 2017 a bit, possibly, but they may also be emboldened by less Haley 2 coming out. So, yeah. Let's see if I have any questions. Nope. Probably due to my stream not being terrific today. Yeah. So in short, it'll be pretty interesting to see WTC. You know, there's obviously a bunch more Circle lists I didn't click on. It does seem like we are on a downward trend as far as how much is there, and more machine factions in general are an upward trend. I didn't mention it, but Protectorate was below us, and that's interesting. I think Circle has a very... I actually listened to, I think it's Moose Machine, or This Death Clock has 60 Minutes, which I think actually came on right before, either comes on right before or right after the show on the Moose Machine Network. But I listened to their episodes after the fact a lot of times, and they had a fella named Josh, who I actually played against at MuseCon back in the spring. Terrific person, terrific player. Played Amon and Amaikai too, and I think I talked about that in the back on that episode. But he talked about something where he said Protectorate seems to be a faction that has an even matchup into everything, and if you can play better than your opponent, you'll win. And so as I think about Circle into Protectorate, I actually feel like that's generally pretty true. There's some exceptions, but generally I feel like I agree with him. So I think as I look at what I've been playing and how it plays and how Protectorate plays and so on, that he's not wrong, right? That said, if you're a Circle player and they have an Amon list, I would say the odds of them dropping it are extremely high, so plan what you're going to drop accordingly. Of course, somebody I probably just screwed over who, will end up being the 10%er that doesn't do that, but I think most of them are still playing Amon. The numbers, Amon is the most taken caster here, so have a plan for him if you're going to play into that. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any of those pair-ups that happen at the WTC. So anyways, I think I'm going to start wrapping the episode up. I don't have any additional questions. I think WTC will be very interesting. I think seeing where these theme forces end up will be very interesting. I think seeing it's always very interesting. People try to draw a lot of conclusions from WTC, which is tough because it's a team event and they're a little bit when you can sort of plan to dodge, or your one game doesn't matter as much, you can sort of play a little differently list-wise, but I also think just everybody bringing two lists that can handle the most things is also quite strong. So, but everybody kind of tries to figure out where the game is going based on WTC lists, and I think I would say don't try to plan that way, because usually it all changes pretty quickly after that. I mean, Wormwood was huge. He kind of got nerfed. Una became big until she was nerfed, and then we sort of stopped seeing Circle for a while. A lot of what we saw roll out of WTC kind of continued into War Machine Weekend, and then by the beginning of 2017, the meta started to shift pretty significantly. So also, there could be some quick changes that come in that just weren't ready, that could make another shift in the game. So in any case, check out WTC. There should be a stream Muse and the Crucible guys are doing. I know they didn't get as many donations, but it sounds like there'll be a pretty decent stream still. So kudos to those guys for doing that. Muse will be over there, and of course they still let me post my videos there, so take a look at them. This is also not a sponsor in any way, shape, or form, but Conflict Chamber is where the WTC lists are posted, and I know David has been working really hard to get that to be a really good piece of software. In a lot of ways, it's significantly better than War Room, so kudos to him, and thank you to him for putting that out there. I think he didn't have to do that. He's not asking for any money. I don't even think there's ads on the site, and it's just a terrific piece of software that has helped the community immensely. The WTC list validation process went from taking them like a week to, I don't know, hours. So definitely big thank you to David for doing that. He's actually he's a near local. He's not quite a local. He's up in Madison, but I do run into him at events. Saw him at the WITC recently. It's great software and it's great work. So I think he deserves some credit there. And if you have an event too, he says contact him. He can hook you up. So if you want to do pre-reg. And then of course, Griffin's Roost Painting. All of the pretty models I have are painted by Griffin's Roost Painting, and you can check out her blog at griffinsroostpainting.com, or Facebook page where there's a bunch of pictures of previous work, and you can contact her there if you have any questions about a commission. So I think that'll be all. Till next week, we'll see what we have circle-wise to talk about. Thanks for watching, everybody.